What's up, A&W Theatrics? It's the one and only Eamon Winkleman here, back with another video. With me today is my good friend, Blu Lynx World.
Hello.
So right now we're just sitting in my car, just chilling, maxing, relaxing, all cool, and shooting some b-ball outside of the school when a couple of guys who were up to no good started making trouble in my neighborhood. I got in one little fight and my mom got scared and said, "You're moving with your auntie and uncle in Bel Air." So, while we're sitting here, I thought it'd be fun to tell you guys of an interesting idea that Blu and I had. So, a while back, I made a fake trailer that was inspired by an idea that my good buddy Blu Lynx World and I have been working on for... The fake trailer was inspired by Blu and I's Hasbro Shared Universe. And basically what we're doing, and basically the Hasbro Shared Universe it features the G.I. Joe, the Transformers, and the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And we're reimagining the Transformers, the G.I. Joe, and the Power Rangers as if they took place in the same universe. And we're combining it into one shared universe. Basically, this is the story and the lore behind it. It all starts with the Transformers. The Transformers are the core of the lore of the Hasbro Shared Universe. Our Hasbro Shared Universe. They're essentially like the Iron Man of the Shared Universe. They're the ones that start it all. I'll have Blu explain it since he's the one that came up.
It's about time, you know, that's what I was trying to do. Okay, sorry if I look a little red. I am sunburnt and tan. Alright, so the Transformers. The Transformers, I would go through the whole creation story with you, but that's...
We can save that for a separate video. Let's just do a little simplification and like the basics of it.
Yes. Okay, so Optimus and Megatron are brothers. They are the children of Solus and Megatronus Prime. Megatronus was... well, he accidentally murdered their mother. Well, accidentally murdered is a bit of a stretch. More of there was a lab accident that got her killed. However, Megatron and Optimus were told all for most of their lives that Megatronus murdered their mother. So Megatron ran away from home along with Optimus, who was named Orion
Pax. For all you
Orion
diehard Transformers
Pax.
fans, we apologize for him misspeaking. You may continue.
So they run away from home, and for thousands of years they went in and out of slavery. They went from being enslaved by one pirate group to another cartel, to another pirate group, to a crime syndicate, to a cartel, just back and forth in and out of slavery and poverty and homelessness. Until they were teenagers, young teens, well, yeah, teenagers, mid-teens, in Cybertronian years.
And what did they become, you said?
They became the adopted children of Sentinel Prime. And they became Knights of Cybertron. Hence the Knightsverse.
That's what we're calling it. The Knightsverse.
But the whole story of the Knightsverse mostly revolves around Megatron and Optimus Prime's story. So, at first Megatron and Orion, they were the best of friends. They did everything together. They went everywhere together. They fought together. They lived together. They went to school together. They trained together. They did everything. However, when Megatron became a lieutenant and started commanding his own troops, well, he started to change slowly. However, he still had good intentions in his heart, as the Prime Councils at the time weren't actually biological primes. They were just political figures who received the name Prime, and they were extremely corrupt, basically a council of dictators. and Megatron was a soldier slave along with Optimus. So Megatron one day decided to form a resistance.
And what was that resistance you say it was? What was the name of it?
The Autobot Resistance.
Megatron founded the Autobots.
Megatron was the original founder of the Autobot Resistance.
And I thought it was Optimus Prime.
Nope, not in Knight's verse.
Fascinating.
So the Prime Wars started, where Megatron and his brother Optimus led the Autobot Resistance against the Prime's Council and liberated Cybertron from the Prime's Council and their allies, the Slave Masters, the Quintessons.
In fact, Megatron had such an impact not only on Cybertron, but on planets across their galaxy. One planet in particular.
Let me do a little tidbit. Okay, so to explain this next part, I first have to explain why there are humans all over the galaxy. One big reason. Cybertronians are made from their cyberinium, that's the metal they're made from, is living metal. So they are sentient, living, organic beings made from cyberformed humans. But the original planet that humans were from, known as, which the planet I haven't given a name yet, Hermea. Hermea, the original planet that the humans are from, was destroyed, so the Cybertronians, the original 13 Primes, took all of the humans, evacuated them from Hermea, and put them on hundreds of different planets scattered across the galaxy that were suitable for them to live. And they put them in these underground Cybertronian chambers to protect them. Until, well, many of them were either kicked out of the chambers by the security system or they left on their own. These planets were planets like KO-1, Eltar, and Earth.
Power Ranger fans, you listening? This is where the Power Rangers come in.
Yep. So, the Eltarians worship the Cybertronians, because when they came out,
They are diehard worshippers.
they believe them to be their gods, because the Cybertronians left their technology on these planets for them to for the humans to use to rebuild their civilizations on these new planets.
One Eltarian being in particular was a huge worshipper of Solus Prime, and was actually a prophet of Solus Prime. Power Ranger-
Zordon.
That prophet was none other than Zordon.
And then, but Eltar had the Cybertronian technology that Eltar had gave them access to Vector Sigma, but they didn't call it by the Cybertronian name.
They called it
the
the
Morphing, Grid.
Grid.
So, yeah.
What is Vector Sigma? Like those Transformers, there's diehard Transformers fans, or non-diehard Transformers fans probably watching, not knowing what the hell Vector Sigma is.
So in the original cartoon, Vector Sigma was the origin of the Transformers. It's where they were made. But in the Knight's verse, Vector Sigma, yes, it's the origin. It's one of the major pieces of the origin. But Vector Sigma in the Knight's verse is actually the entity Primus himself. It is the dimension that stores his lifeblood, Energon. And Energon is basically a jack-of-all-trades type of energy source. You can use it to forge weapons, you can use it to
Hence
fuel
why
vehicles.
it's also the Morphing Grid.
You can even use it to change biological beings and give them power.
You see what's going on here?
So the Eltarians, when they first met the Cybertronians and saw that the Vector Sigma's energy allowed them to transform through their organs called T-Cogs, they came up with the idea, what if we did the same thing for our own people, except instead of, changing their form entirely, they instead gave them new abilities, like super strength, super speed, and super durability.
And ability to use things that are similar to magic. One being in particular used Vector Sigma to become a witch. Who was that, you may ask?
Rita Repulsa.
After 10,000 years, I'm free. It's time to conquer Earth!
Okay, anyways, after the Prime Wars, Megatron, back to the Prime Wars. After the Prime Wars, Megatron being a slave for his whole life, most of his life, and now being in charge of the military, that, all the war, all the death, all the destruction kind of traumatized him. Not to mention that being in charge of something for once was starting to get to his head. It was like, I've been a slave all my life, and now here I am in charge of the most powerful army in the known universe.
You getting Darth Vader vibes, anybody? Because I kind of am. I don't know why.
But anyways, his corruption started to slowly come into play. He became more and more and more power hungry, and Optimus was originally going to be named Uranus Prime by the old Prime Council. However, he denied this because the Prime Council, before the Prime Wars, denied Megatron his birthright, which was the title of a Prime. Megatron, by birthright,
Is a prime.
is a Prime. He is the child of two Primes. He was of age, in fact, he's older than Optimus. So he was of age to receive his rank as a Prime. So Megatron was denied his birthright. Why? Because they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to control Megatron if he was a Prime. They thought they could control Optimus because they felt Optimus was more timid and and would be easier to manipulate. They wildly underestimated Optimus Prime's confidence and wisdom, because Optimus denied them on the spot, telling them, if you don't give my brother what is rightfully his by birthright,
You dead, motherfucker.
then there is not a chance in hell that I will accept my Prime name. After the Prime Wars, Optimus ended up getting his Prime name first, later on, when the new Cybertronian leadership was established, but there was a bit of a problem. But when Optimus got his Prime name, Optimus Prime, he went to contact his brother so he could receive his Prime name. However, he discovered Megatron did something.
What was that?
Megatron gathered his followers who believed he should be the sole ruler and dictator over Cybertron, and he founded a new faction.
The Decepticons.
So, now that Megatron was considered an enemy, the new council could not give him his Prime name.
And that's how Megatron turned evil.
He still wasn't technically evil by this time, but he was turning to the dark side
Of the Force. He's essentially like Darth Vader in this.
Basically, he's a character who his heart in the right is in the right
He's in the right place, but his methods and stuff are like,
his actions are evil. Now, don't get this wrong. Don't start thinking, empathize and understand with Megatron, but you gotta remember, like with Darth Vader, you shouldn't feel he is justified in his actions, because he is still evil, he is still a villain, and he is still doing things that are horribly immoral and wrong.
G.I. Joe, there's not much to explain about it, but
Cobra was originally a Nazi science team, known as the Vipers.
But it was founded into an international terrorist organization during the Cold War.
Yep, it was taken and captured by Joseph Stalin, and as well as the Allied powers took some Viper scientists, and then after the towards the end of the Cold War, when Gorbachev takes over, Cobra escapes from the USSR and basically reunites in Syria, where they build a new faction that they call Cobra.
Cobra!
And that's when the G.I. Joes were formed to fight Cobra. In In the 1970s.
The 1970s.
Yep. And the original commander of Cobra was killed by General Hawk. And that's when the Cobra commander you know now takes over. And the reason why he wears that helmet that covers his face is
because General Hawk, who was a commanding officer at the time, was it a flashbang? Yeah, it was a flashbang. Was it a flashbang?
No, it was a grenade he threw into.
He threw a grenade right into his face, and it messed up his face. So he's the reason
not
why
into his face. He threw a grenade into. He basically pulled the pin on the grenade, shoved it into Cobra Commander's chest, then kicked him into a room, and then slammed the door shut. Cobra Commander threw it to the other side of the room and tried to take cover, but it exploded, and the shrapnel and the explosion damaged his face.
Hence why he wears that face mask.
Because
You
it
know,
helps
the silver one that has like no features.
Yeah, because it helps him breathe. Because a lot of the dust and shit that he inhaled while he was knocked unconscious damaged his lungs. So he wears, kind of like Darth Vader, he wears the mask
Like
to
Darth
help him
Vader.
breathe.
Yeah. Anyways.
Oh, and his helmet has kind of like this cobra head on it.
Right.
And he has 2 cobras.
What are their names, you might say?
What were their names? Oh my god, I forgot. Oh! What's the name of the race?
Alright, while you're looking it up, you mind if I talk?
Sure.
Alright, so we explained the Transformers and we explained the G.I. Joe and how they and their connection into this Hasbro Shared Universe. Now on to the Power Rangers.
Oh! The names of the two cobras, of his 2 pet king cobras, is Golo and Bulas.
For all you diehard G.I. Joe fans, I'm sure you recognize that name.
Golobulus was the name of the race of snake people from the original G.I. Joe show.
A real American hero.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, anyways, on to the Power Rangers. So, over 10,000 years ago, Eltar and Cybertron exist in the same galaxy. And as Blue said before, their technology was left behind on the planet Eltar, the Cybertronians' technology, and they worshiped them as gods. They worshiped them so much that they would go across the galaxy and send messages about them. One in particular, as I mentioned before, Zordon was a prophet of the Cybertronians, specifically Optimus's mother, Solus Prime. As this being was a heavy worshiper of Megatron. Here's a hint to who it might be, Power Ranger fans. He's red. He had
his skin melted off during a battle.
He has a staff.
With a Z.
If you guessed Lord Zed, you're right. Lord Zed worships Megatron. In fact, Zed worshipped him so much that it corrupted him he became evil.
You mean he was so devout in his worship?
He was so devout in his worship that it turned him evil, and he founded the Zed Empire, along with his bride, Rita Repulsa. And together, the two of them started conquering planets, including their own, Eltar, forcing Eltar to go into a state of civil war against the Zed Empire and Zordon's army. Zordon was victorious in the war, so Rita and Zed became desperate. So they traveled all the way to Cybertron and formed an alliance with none other than freaking Megatron. Megatron accepted this alliance, and the two of them formed a great alliance and completely overwhelmed Zordon.
Mostly so he could gain access to Eltar so he could retrieve the ancient Cybertronian technology.
So in response to this, Zordon traveled to Cybertron, and you guessed it, Zordon formed an alliance with Optimus Prime. And thus the Eltarian Cybertronian War began.
And it only lasted 20 years.
However, in that 20 years, a certain somebody, Micronus Prime, who was also a certain Power Ranger character in our version, Ninjor, created a very special energy source from Vector Sigma. You guessed it, the Power Coins. And thus he formed the Power Rangers. So the Power Rangers were a big help in the Eltarian Cybertronian War. In fact, it was because of the Power Rangers.
Look at my.
It was because of the Power Rangers that the Eltarians beat Rita and half of the Zed Empire. However, the Autobots lost to the Decepticons and Megatron. But Lord Zed ended up escaping with Megatron to Earth to find the Allspark. And as for Rita, Zordon locked her up in a dumpster. And then 10,000 or so years later, the Decepticons were on the moon, and they rediscovered Rita's dumpster and freed her. And for all you Power Ranger fans, I'm sure you know the rest. The Power Rangers were chosen: Jason, Zach, Billy, Trini, and Kimberly. And then eventually the Sixth Ranger, Tommy. But that's pretty much the basics of our Hasbro Shared Universe. I hope you enjoyed it. I think we did an okay job of explaining it to you. Let us know in the comments what you think, and we'll see you guys later. I'm Mighty 5000. Ching! Woo!